We're going to talk about the railing system, how we're adding lights. So this is an LED system we've got from Regal Ideas. And if you note on the box, it says will provide power for up to 60 feet. 60 feet. So with 60 feet, that means we have 100 and something feet of deck here, like the railing we're doing. So we actually have to put 2 sources in. So that just means an extra block for power. So we're going to be running another source for where we can plug these in, and they all run off of these nice little remote controls, 3 colors, 3 levels of brightness. All right, so here's our lights. LED strip lights come in all these packages. They're the 3 color lights, and they go with this, the whole entire setup. We have our transformer, and then we have the plug-in port. So you'll see it has a weather-tight ring seal on it. The pins lock in only one direction, so you can't mess that up. And then once it gets on there, you tighten it down, and by tightening it, this gives us a perfect weather seal, okay? So that's the key here. Now, number one thing to do when you get your lights set up, before you install them and put them all on the post, I've plugged it into a power source. It's going down into the extension cord. And now what I want to do is plug in the actual LED string into the end of the port. And you'll notice they all come with these cool little heat shrinks. So what you're going to take is a nice little lighter, and this would shrink down over top of the tip of this joint, creating another watertight seal. This is the whole point. We want to make sure no water and moisture is getting in there to ruin the terminal. So let's test these out, because this is the key to having lights work. We got to make sure we test them first. Notice the word says top, right? So now make sure we get those 2 to slide together. Okay. And the only way to turn these on is with the remote control. Remote control, it comes with this plastic tab. This is stopping the battery from being worn out while in packaging. Pull it out to make sure it works. Next thing we're going to do, press on. What do you know, folks? So there you go. Can you see the lights? Bring them into the darkness. Okay, check this out. Green, which is actually orange, white, and then we have our brightness checks. Everything seems to work. It's great. That means our power source works, so if we run into any more issues, it's going to be on the LED strand, and we know now that we have an actual working set of lights and power source. So first set, tests, great. Now I'll test all of them, and then we'll start installing them. That way we don't have to worry about them after they're installed, and we don't have any more headaches. So we've taken this post off right now, and all we're gonna do is we're gonna find dead center. I'm taking a 1-inch spade bit, and this is the hole size that we need to go through here. As you can tell on the bottom of the post, there's a giant hole here, and that's where our wire feed's gonna come through, and we're gonna drop it down through the deck, through all of this, and all that blocking. So we gotta make sure we get a big, powerful bit to drill through everything here. Excellent blocking. And that's how you start the holes to go through so you can feed your electrical. First post with the power pack, take the cap off. Oh my goodness, it takes that much effort. Back of a rubber mallet would be great. So there we go, little tap, pull it off. Take this part of the sensor, the remote with the transmitter and the receiver on. We're gonna drop it through. That's Vanna White's hands right there, folks.
Sweaty hand.
We're gonna drop it to the bottom, and then when we get to the bottom, we're gonna look for it to come out of the bottom of the post. There we go, out the bottom of the post. The key here, folks, don't let this part go anywhere. What you're gonna do with this part now is keep it dangling out the top, okay? With it dangling out the top, we can do 2 things. We can either tape it or clamp it in place. Then we're gonna take this part and throw it through this hole. That in place. Then check this out. We're down here at the bottom. Now all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna connect these 2 back together. Tighten it on nice. With that tightened in place, there's these 2 corner tabs. And all I'm gonna do is I'm gonna flip this underneath, and I'm gonna screw it into the side here with some 1.5-inch screws. So that pack is mounted on the underside, but on the inside, so it's protected from weather. There's the hole underneath the post, coming out to the power pack, secure it in place. That's how it should look. Basically what we've got is the railing, and what happens is when you get the railing, the bottom rail's inside the top rail. And what I like to do is actually leave them inside, and I lay them on the saw, and I cut them together. Tip for keeping your nice railings from getting scratched from sliding across on the metal bases. Scrap piece of cardboard from the boxes, slip them up on there, And that way you can make your cuts without ever having to worry about marring the faces on your tube. So we've cut our first section of rail, and to test the fit, first thing we do, install the bottom rail. All it does is slip right into the track. Drops in place, that simple. Now, top rail shoes into the openings up here. You can see how I made use of that whole entire loose post part because I wasn't able to get it in. If I had that fixed, I would never get the top rail in. That's the key. The bottom rail slides right in, no problem. We got that drop right in, easy. We got the clearance for the welds. And then when we get to the top, the only way we can get that to shoe in here is by leaning it back and forth. So with that quick lean back and forth, so I'll show you on this one here, this is welded to the post, makes it easy to slide that in and out, in and out. And that, with that nice little wiggle at the bottom, not having these fixed in all the way, allows me to do that. Next up, after you put your rails in, we're doing glass and we're doing lights. So we gotta do these LED G tracks. So it's LED-G is the code for Regal. Anyway, top strip has this clear fin. The bottom strip has a black fin. So that's how you can tell the difference. Cut them the same length as your rail and pop them in. Now, after I pop them in, I have not screwed the posts in, nothing solidified. I'm just popping them in right now, and then afterwards, we'll go along the bottom track. And the number one thing that you have to do with bottom rails is drill holes. We're gonna drill drainage holes, pop them all the way across. I do every 6 to 8 inches. You're gonna do a bunch all the way across. That way water will drip out of the bottom of the track. Screw in the bottom of the post, then we'll set everything up. Popping in the tracks, popping in the rails, then we put everything and fix them in place. All right, so all our rails are set in place. We're putting all the gaskets in. Now all that's left to do is grab my 24-inch level and set all these posts plumb, get them nice and straight. All right, so first thing we do, check the post. It's not quite perfect. Not there. There's a lot of movement that has to happen. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna tighten it down, and then we're gonna see how it settles once we screw it tight to the deck. And after that, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use washers. Washers will be underneath the corners where we can set it to push it up and down where we need it. So what we see is that it's perfect actually once it's tightened in this direction, but I need to get it to shift a little bit more in this direction. So all I'm gonna do is slip a little washer in there and it should be all set. And then I'm just gonna go ahead, rip it all the way down on all the other posts, and that's all you need to do. And once they're all set in place, everything's fixed, then we go ahead and we put in our colored matching screws that are self-tappers into the side rails to pinch all of our rails in place, because the posts are the key to being perfect. Then the rails set perfectly after that. I just want to show you how I do the leveling with the stainless steel washer. So I need this post to tilt this direction. So what I'm going to do, literally just take this washer, slip the post up. That way when I tighten it down, you can do it through underneath the holes too if you wanted to back them all the way out, but it works really well just to slip it underneath here. And then all I'm going to do is tighten these back down, and it's going to tilt the post just perfect. So slip that little washer in right here, and it should be just right. So just in case you're worried, yes, the deck board, that's a vein in it, not a split. But you can see the washers right there, just to show you. And because it's wood, it's going to squish into the wood, but it's going to create enough of a cantilever just to give the push on the post. And I can give as much as I want to shake this thing. It is not moving at all. Like, I'm pushing hard on that. And it's rock solid, so there's no worry. So just for you to know, that little washer technique, it works. And you can put them underneath each corner where the bolting is happening, but I wanted to kick up just a bit more on that little spot. So I normally put 2 washers in here. This one only required 1. It worked well. And after the posts are set, this is what you should look at when you're down the line of the railing. Nice and straight. When the bottom rails and your distance between the posts is longer than 48 inches, we actually require these things here. Stanchion base, center support, just basically midline rail. And obviously I haven't screwed these in yet, but the posts are fixed. I can slip this up in the middle, drop it down, and they have the ability to slide back and forth. And all it does is stops the sag in the middle of the rail because the distance can only withhold so much. So another thing that we need to do is drainage holes. As you can see, we're drilling through the stripping, and then we're drilling right through the rail out the bottom. So that way, the water will then come out when it freezes in the wintertime and thaws, and we don't have to worry about any heaving. Next thing up is installing our self-tapping metal screws. If you notice, there are fins, 1, 2, 3. In the bottom, there's a hollow section on the railing that doesn't affect where the glass lands. I like to put the screw down here. That way you don't have to worry about it ever interfering with anything else. When we're unscrewing on top, the self-tappers, I like to put them in this little spot right here in the little crevice, so it's not seen, a little bit more inconspicuous. Again, you can pre-drill it or use a self-tapper. So we got a close-up here of our power pack source and LED connections. This is how we actually do them. We have a hole up inside the rail, right there, that's our hole. And now we'll set up for our connection. So with the heat shield, all we're gonna do is top this side, click it in, and then I put the heat shrink over top. So we take the lighter, see how it shrinks to it? That gives us a weather-tight seal, so I'll rotate it over. Basically what's gonna happen now is that the more I shrink it, the tighter it gets, and then there's less chance of this ever pulling apart. So there we go. That's the after of a heat shrink connection, just so you can see it's nice and fitted. Makes everything look really good, and you can tell that it has a little bit more security to the joint, and not to mention, it will repel any water from being able to get anywhere around this terminal jug. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna peel off the adhesive, peel off the backing, and I'm gonna stick it up inside the rail with my finger, just jamming it. We have another heat shrink, okay? So we don't wanna lose that. So I slide that off, grab my adhesive paper back, all the way across, and once we get to the other side, we will do the exact same thing over here and slip it up through the hole and then connect it to the next LED string, and I'll slip this weather tight, the heat shrink back onto the end, and then heat those together, and so on and so forth through all the chains. Just another quick note here, this is your antenna basically off your transmitter. So what we do with that is we tuck it back through the hole in the underside of the post again. So what I'm gonna do is slip this in here so you can see how it works. Heat shrunk on, you can see the inside of the post here, and you can see how I've tethered the little antenna to go through there, and it comes out the bottom just that little bit, and that's what's going to be picked up. The remote control is going to talk to that, and then we just tuck this in, put the post cap back on, and that's it. Pardon the background noise, but I wanted to give you a quick tip on how we install the glass. Get yourself a couple of suction cup grippers, and you can lift the glass up without any issues. Make sure that at the bottom, near these corners, you have your spacer blocks. Those little rubber blocks, they're key to keeping the pressure of the glass out to the outside edge. These suction cup grips make everything easier. All you're gonna do is every time you pick up your sheet, you're gonna stuff it into the top first, line it up to the bottom, and set it right down. All your drain holes are drilled, and everything should be done. Well, that's a wrap for today. It's day 2. We started a half day yesterday, and I wanted to finish up today. Had a couple of mistakes, but you know what? You live and you learn, and apparently Mother Nature's telling me to cut. Stay tuned for the final beauty shots and for the finished product.